Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always excited to explore these fascinating
Well,
topics.
get ready because today we're venturing into a realm that really pushes the boundaries of astrobiology. We're talking about molecular cloud biology.
Ah, yes, that fascinating paper you sent me. I have to say, it definitely challenges some of our traditional assumptions about where life might exist.
Exactly. We're talking about the possibility of life not on a planet, but within those incredibly cold and vast molecular clouds, the very nurseries of stars.
Right. The research paper we're diving into is from Lai Feng. He's delving into the physics and the chemistry that could actually allow life to not just exist, but potentially even thrive in these extreme environments. It's definitely a mind bender.
And that's exactly what we love to do here. So for those of you already well-versed in the world of astrobiology, buckle up. This deep dive is going to take you to the edge of what we know about life's possibilities.
I think it's safe to say that most people, when they think about life beyond Earth, they're picturing a planet, maybe something like early Earth, or maybe even something radically different, but a planet nonetheless.
Yeah, a nice solid planet with liquid water, maybe an atmosphere, the works.
Right. But this research from Feng is really asking us to consider a completely different kind of habitat, a much more, shall we say, unconventional one.
So let's paint a picture of these molecular clouds for our listeners. I mean, they're not exactly what you would call hospitable.
No, not at all. We're talking extremely cold, just a few degrees above absolute zero, and the density is incredibly low. It's essentially a near perfect vacuum compared to what we're used to.
So not exactly a walk in the park. But what's remarkable is that even in these harsh environments, we find a surprising abundance of, wait for it, organic molecules.
It's true. We're talking about molecules like fullerenes, which are these fascinating cage-like structures made of carbon atoms.
And then there are polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAH for short. These are complex molecules found all over the place, from soot to interstellar dust.
And, perhaps most intriguingly, there's glycolaldehyde. This one's a simple sugar, a basic building block for more complex carbohydrates.
Which makes you wonder, right? I mean, if these building blocks are already present in these clouds, could it be that these clouds are more than just stellar nurseries? Could they be playing a role in the transport or even the origin of life itself?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting. Remember the panspermia hypothesis?
Of course. The idea that life could be spread throughout the universe, hitching rides on comets or asteroids.
Exactly. And Feng's paper takes this concept a step further, connecting it to what's called the nebula relay hypothesis. Now, stay with me here because this gets a little mind-bending.
Go for it. We're all ears.
So imagine this. The sun, our sun, wasn't the first star in this region of space, right? It had a stellar progenitor, a star that came before it.
Right, like a grandparent star.
Exactly. And according to the nebula relay hypothesis, life's building blocks might have actually originated in the planetary system of that grandparent star.
Okay, I'm following so far. So these building blocks are hanging out in this earlier solar system. Then what?
Well, then the grandparent star reaches the end of its life and goes supernova, scattering all that material, including those precious building blocks, into space.
Ah, so these molecular clouds form from that scattered debris, and they're already seeded with the ingredients for life.
Precisely. So they're not just carriers of life, but potentially nurseries for life's earliest stages. It's a truly fascinating concept.
It is. But even if we accept that these building blocks are there, how could anything actually live in a place like this?
Yeah.
We're talking about temperatures close to absolute zero and practically no sunlight. Where would the energy for life even come from?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this is where Feng's research gets really intriguing. He proposes that life in molecular clouds could be powered by something completely different from what we're used to: cosmic rays.
Cosmic rays, those high-energy particles that bombard Earth from space.
The very same. Now, you might think of cosmic rays as being harmful, and they can be at high doses, but Feng suggests they could actually be the key to life in molecular clouds.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
He proposes two main mechanisms. First, cosmic rays could act as catalysts, kind of like kickstarting chemical reactions that release energy. Think of it like striking a match. The cosmic ray provides the initial spark, and then the chemical reaction takes over.
So it's not the cosmic rays themselves providing the energy, but rather triggering the release of energy that's already stored in the molecules.
Exactly. And the second mechanism is even more mind-blowing. Feng suggests that life could directly harness the energy of cosmic ray ionization.
Ionization. You mean when an atom gains or loses electrons?
Precisely. When a cosmic ray slams into a molecule, it can knock off an electron, creating an ion. This process releases energy, and Feng believes that some forms of life could capture and utilize this energy directly.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's almost like life in molecular clouds could be powered by these tiny, natural nuclear power plants.
It's a very different way of thinking about energy for life, but it's certainly a compelling idea. And what's really fascinating is that there might be some parallels to this right here on Earth.
Really? Are there any Earth-based life forms that do something similar?
Feng points to a group of organisms called methanogens and acetogens as potential analogs for what we might find in molecular clouds. These are some of the most extreme life forms on Earth, thriving in environments that would be toxic to most other organisms.
Extremophiles, they call them, right? The ultimate survivors.
Exactly. Now, methanogens, as their name suggests, produce methane as a byproduct of their metabolism, while acetogens produce acetic acid, the main component of vinegar.
Okay, so what do they have to do with life in molecular clouds?
Well, both methanogens and acetogens use hydrogen as their primary energy source. And guess what's incredibly abundant in molecular clouds?
Hydrogen, I see where you're going with this.
Right. These organisms could potentially use the readily available hydrogen in these clouds to convert carbon dioxide, which is also present, into methane or acetic acid, releasing energy in the process.
So it's like finding an oasis in the desert, but instead of water, it's hydrogen that's sustaining life?
Precisely. And what's even more remarkable is that Feng doesn't just propose this theoretically. He actually goes through the calculations, looking at the energy these microbes could potentially extract in a molecular cloud environment.
What did he find?
Well, even with those incredibly low temperatures, it turns out that there's enough energy released through these metabolic processes to theoretically support microbial life. Of course, this is all still theoretical, but it certainly makes you wonder.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
It seems like we're starting to unravel a whole new understanding of where life might exist. But this also raises some interesting questions about the origins of life here on Earth, doesn't it? I mean, if life could emerge in molecular clouds, could it be that life on Earth actually came from these clouds?
Now you're thinking like a true astrobiologist. And that's where Feng's research takes another fascinating turn. He draws a connection between these methanogens and acetogens and something called LUCA.
LUCA. Refresh my memory.
LUCA stands for the last universal common ancestor. It's essentially the root of the tree of life, the ancestor of all life on Earth, as far as we know.
Okay, right. So how do methanogens and acetogens fit into all of this?
Well, recent studies suggest that LUCA itself might have been a methanogen or acetogen. Now, think about that for a moment. Combine that with the nebula relay hypothesis, and a truly mind-blowing scenario emerges.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine this. Life emerges in the molecular cloud surrounding the sun's progenitor star. Some of those early life forms, maybe methanogens or acetogens, get incorporated into comets or asteroids. Those objects travel through space, carrying those life forms with them. Eventually, they crash into a young Earth, seeding our planet with the very first life.
Wow, so instead of life originating on Earth, it actually came from somewhere else entirely, from the remnants of a long-dead star. It's a truly humbling and awe-inspiring concept. It completely changes our perspective on the origins of life and the interconnectedness of everything in the universe.
It really does. We often think of life as being confined to planets, but what if it's far more widespread than we ever imagined? What if life is woven into the very fabric of the cosmos, clinging to existence in the most unlikely of places? It's a truly profound idea.
It certainly is. But it also begs the question, how do we know if any of this is true? How do we test these fascinating but very theoretical ideas?
Well, Feng outlines a few different approaches in his paper, each with its own set of challenges and potential rewards. One of the most straightforward, at least conceptually, is laboratory simulation.
So basically trying to recreate the conditions of a molecular cloud here on Earth, kind of like building a mini molecular cloud in a lab.
Exactly. The idea is to meticulously control the environment. You'd have to get the temperature down to those incredibly low levels, just a few degrees Kelvin, and replicate the low density and the specific mix of gases and molecules found in these clouds.
And then introduce those potential life-sustaining molecules like hydrogen and carbon dioxide and see what happens.
That's the gist of it. Of course, it's an incredibly complex undertaking, but if we could successfully recreate those conditions and then observe those metabolic processes Feng is talking about, if we could see those organisms utilizing hydrogen and producing methane or acetic acid, it would be pretty compelling evidence.
It would certainly strengthen the argument, that's for sure. But lab simulations are limited in what they can tell us, right? I mean, they can't fully replicate the vastness and complexity of a real molecular cloud.
That's true. Lab simulations are just one piece of the puzzle. Feng also suggests looking for homologous life forms on other celestial bodies. In other words, finding life forms on other planets or moons that share a common ancestor with life on Earth and might have originated in those molecular clouds.
Places like Europa and Enceladus, with their subsurface oceans, come to mind.
Exactly. If we find life on those moons, and it turns out that life shares a common ancestor with us Earthlings, and that common ancestor points back to a molecular cloud origin, well, that would lend significant weight to the nebula relay hypothesis.
It's like connecting the dots across vast stretches of space and time. It's a pretty mind-blowing thought. But even if we find those homologous life forms, how do we prove their connection to molecular clouds? I mean, it seems like a pretty long shot.
It is a long shot, no doubt about it. But there are ways to investigate those connections. We can look at the genetic makeup of those organisms, analyze their biochemistry, and compare them to what we might expect from life that originated in molecular clouds. It's a bit like detective work, piecing together clues from across the solar system. But Feng also proposes a more direct approach. He suggests looking for evidence within the molecular clouds themselves.
But how do you even begin to look for evidence of life in something as vast and distant as a molecular cloud? It's not like we can just send a probe there and start digging around.
True, it's not that simple. But we can look for what are called biosignatures, specific molecules or combinations of molecules that are indicative of life processes. And Feng points to one biosignature in particular that could be particularly telling: the distribution of methane relative to carbon dioxide.
Methane, like what methanogens produce.
Precisely. Remember, these methanogens use hydrogen to convert carbon dioxide into methane. So if we detect an unusually high abundance of methane in regions of a molecular cloud where we wouldn't expect it based on normal chemical processes, it could be a hint that something biological is going on.
I see. It's like finding a chemical fingerprint that points to the presence of life. But how do we even detect those molecules from so far away?
Well, that's where our technological advancements come into play. We now have incredible tools like the James Webb Space Telescope, which operates in infrared wavelengths. It has the sensitivity and resolution to analyze the composition of molecular clouds in unprecedented detail.
So we might actually be able to see those methane signals using the James Webb Telescope.
It's definitely within the realm of possibility. Of course, any findings would have to be carefully scrutinized to rule out any non-biological explanations, but it's an exciting prospect nonetheless.
It really is. It's like having a new lens to view the universe, one that might reveal the subtle traces of life in places we never thought possible. But there's another avenue for finding evidence that I find particularly fascinating: the possibility of finding actual microfossils in meteorites.
Ah, yes, the idea that we might be holding remnants of ancient life from molecular clouds right here on Earth, locked away in those fallen space rocks.
It's such a tangible connection to those distant realms. But how do we know if those microfossils, if we find them, actually came from space? I mean, how do we rule out contamination?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Contamination is a huge concern when it comes to searching for extraterrestrial life. But there are techniques that can help distinguish between terrestrial and extraterrestrial origins. One of the most powerful tools is something called nanoscale secondary ion mass spectrometry. It's a mouthful, I know, but it's an incredibly precise technique.
So what does it do? How does it help us determine the origin of these potential microfossils?
Well, it allows us to examine the isotopic composition of those structures. Isotopes are basically different versions of the same element with slightly different masses, and the ratios of these isotopes can act like fingerprints, telling us about the environment in which those structures formed.
So by comparing the isotopic ratios in those potential microfossils to known terrestrial and extraterrestrial signatures, we can determine whether they're more likely to have originated here on Earth or somewhere else in the solar system, maybe even in a molecular cloud.
Exactly. It's a meticulous process, but it's one of the best ways we have to authenticate those potential extraterrestrial finds. And while this field is still very young, there have already been some intriguing discoveries.
Oh, wow. Like what?
Well, for example, analysis of the Tissant meteorite, which came from Mars, revealed organic carbon with isotopic compositions that were different from both the Martian atmosphere and carbonates.
So that suggests the possibility of a biological origin, or at least an origin that's distinct from the typical Martian environment.
That's the implication, yes. And then there are other examples, like potential microfossils found in the Orgo meteorite, a carbonaceous chondrite. While these findings are still debated, they highlight the potential of searching for these microscopic remnants of ancient life in meteorites.
It's like piecing together a cosmic puzzle, searching for clues to life's origins in the most unexpected of places. But even if we don't find definitive proof of microfossils from molecular clouds, the very concept of molecular cloud biology has already had a significant impact on our understanding of the search for life beyond Earth, hasn't it?
It has undoubtedly expanded our horizons, challenged our preconceived notions of where life can exist. We're no longer just searching for Earth 2.0, a planet that mirrors our own. We're acknowledging the potential for life as we don't know it, life that might thrive in conditions we once thought were completely inhospitable.
Life that might use different energy sources, different chemistries, different building blocks than the life we observe here on Earth.
Exactly. This shift in perspective has opened up a whole new realm of possibilities in our search for extraterrestrial life. We're now looking at moons, comets, even molecular clouds as potential habitats for life. And with tools like the James Webb Space Telescope, we're equipped to explore these possibilities with unprecedented depth and precision. It's a truly exciting time to be studying astrobiology. It is indeed. And as we delve deeper into the mysteries of the universe, we find ourselves not only searching for life, but also redefining our understanding of what life is and where it might exist.
This quest for understanding goes beyond simply satisfying our scientific curiosity. It delves into fundamental questions about our place in the cosmos, about the nature of life itself. It's a journey of exploration and discovery, a testament to our enduring quest to unravel the mysteries of the universe. But before we explore those profound implications further, let's pause and consider the broader significance of what we've uncovered in this deep dive into molecular cloud biology. We've journeyed through these incredible molecular clouds, explored their potential as these cosmic cradles of life, and even looked at the ingenious ways life could harness energy in those unbelievably harsh environments.
And we even touched upon that tantalizing evidence that hints at the possibility of microfossils, those tiny remnants of ancient life, maybe even from molecular clouds, found right here on Earth in meteorites.
Absolutely, but now comes the big question. What does it all mean? If this whole idea of molecular cloud biology turns out to be correct, what does that tell us about life in the universe?
Well, I think one of the most profound shifts is in our perspective on how common life might be. I mean, if life can actually emerge and thrive in the cold, desolate expanse of a molecular cloud, it suggests that life may not be the exception, but rather this fundamental force that's woven into the fabric of the cosmos itself.
So the universe, instead of this vast, sterile void, transforms into this fertile garden teeming with potential.
Yeah.
It completely changes how we view the universe.
Exactly. And if life is indeed widespread, then the possibility of encountering other intelligent life, other civilizations out there, becomes much more plausible.
It makes you reconsider that age-old question, are we alone?
It really does. And while actually finding concrete evidence of extraterrestrial life remains a huge challenge, the very act of searching has already led to some pretty remarkable discoveries.
It's driven incredible technological advancements and expanded scientific knowledge. But it goes even deeper than that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This quest has a profound impact on our philosophical and even existential understanding of ourselves.
Contemplating the vastness of the universe and the potential for other life forms out there forces us to confront those fundamental questions about our place in the grand scheme of things.
It challenges those anthropocentric viewpoints, pushing us to recognize that we are just one expression of life among potentially countless others.
And it highlights that interconnectedness of everything, doesn't it? I mean, the elements that make up our bodies, those very molecules that make life possible, they were forged in the hearts of stars, scattered across the universe, and eventually found their way to Earth.
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? We are, quite literally, children of the cosmos, sharing a common heritage with whatever other life forms might exist out there.
And the search for extraterrestrial life, whether or not it gives us definitive answers, reminds us of that profound connection. But let's take a moment to imagine, just for fun, that we do discover conclusive evidence of life beyond Earth. What then?
Oh, the implications would be staggering. It would undoubtedly be one of the most significant events in human history. It would change everything.
It would challenge our belief systems, our social structures, our very understanding of reality.
And yet it would also present incredible opportunities. Imagine the possibilities for scientific collaboration, for cultural exchange, for sharing knowledge and experiences with beings from another world. It's mind-blowing.
It would be a moment of profound humility, a realization that we're not the only intelligent beings in the universe.
But it would also be a moment of immense inspiration, a testament to the limitless potential of life and the endless wonders that the universe holds.
Even if we never find definitive proof of extraterrestrial life, the journey itself is invaluable. It's a journey of exploration, of discovery, of pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding.
It speaks to our innate curiosity, our desire to unravel the mysteries of the cosmos and figure out where we fit into this grand tapestry of existence.
And as we continue this journey, it's good to remember the words of Carl Sagan. Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known.
Perhaps that something incredible is life itself, waiting to be discovered in the depths of a molecular cloud, on a distant moon, or maybe even closer than we think.
The search continues, driven by our enduring quest to understand the universe and answer that fundamental question: are we alone?
And until that question is answered, the possibilities remain as vast and awe-inspiring as the cosmos itself.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into molecular cloud biology. We hope you found it as thought-provoking and inspiring as we did.
Until next time, keep looking up at the stars, keep questioning, and keep wondering about the incredible possibilities that are out there.